Hey.
There we go. How's it going? There we go. I think we're all set.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, this is Josh from the Jester Productions podcast.
Hello.
Yeah, I did his podcast a month ago or so.
Something like that. Yeah, I forget how long ago it was.
Yeah, I just wanted to have him on. Audio sounds a little weird, but well, I just had my computer fixed, so.
Nice. Yeah, I had to record an episode earlier today, actually, for our show, and I got ready to get started. It's like right at 6 o'clock. Go to record. Computer has all these problems. It says it needs updated. I'm like, oh crap. Update the computer, start it back up, get ready to hit record. Discord pops up, freezes everything. I was like, oh my god. What a mess. Seems like everything's working out, so I'm happy with it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So how things been going? What have you been up to since you were on our show?
Not too much. I think I had a couple guests on my podcast. Yeah, just doing kind of the same stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I'm trying to see when it was you're actually on here. I guess it's further back than I thought. Good grief. Time flies by. Yeah. Oh, April 12th. Good grief. We're in June.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have 7 recordings for our show this week. So everything is just a blur for me. Between that, been updating our website, getting that all updated. So everything just runs together all the time for me anymore. So this is actually really relaxing coming on someone else's show. I just have to show up. And talk.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier.
Do you do other podcasts often, or?
I used to. When we first started doing our show, we're about 3.5 years in right now. And I'd be a guest like maybe once or twice a month on other shows. Cause my schedule I was still figuring out how to schedule everything out back then. And, I would do guest shows on a lot of the time. People would reach out to me like, hey, come on our show. I'd be happy to have you on. And I'd go into it not having any idea what I was doing, what I was talking about some of the times. And I'd get in over my head. But even so, I don't know. I'm happy to be back guesting on a show. I'm hoping to do more. Because like I said, it is a lot more relaxing. You just have to show up and talk as opposed to worry about, is the audio sound okay? How am I going to edit this later? How am I going to handle any sponsorships or anything like that? Doing ad reads. So it's nice and easy this way.
Nice. Yeah, didn't you say you did some podcast where you didn't know enough or something?
Yeah, it was. I feel bad now. I can't remember the name of the show. But yeah, I was on it. They were doing like a debate whether or not like vegetarian versus like eating meat.
Oh.
And I was supposed to be like the neutral, and they're asking me questions about stuff, and I was just providing like layman's information, like, oh, this is my personal experience with it. And they were showing up with like sources and research papers and whatnot, and it was I definitely felt way out of place.
Oh yeah, because you said like they expected you to know in detail stuff.
Makes me have details, statistics, like references. I was like, the reference is me. I used to live right next to a farm.
Yeah, like, well, as someone who has eaten meat and also vegetables.
I try and eat them both, and sometimes I eat too much bacon and sometimes I don't eat enough vegetables. That's my input on it. Yeah, I felt really out of place there. It was a little embarrassing, but I don't mind embarrassing. It's entertaining for me. There are times, even in my professional life outside of podcasting and online, I don't mind like awkward scenarios. I find it hilarious because you never know how people are going to react to it. You'll go into a scenario, you'll say something, and not even that it's like an off-putting thing, but just like small talk in general. Sometimes people they don't know where to go with it, And so you just sit there and you just keep talking and asking more and more questions, just leading them on and seeing how far you can get the conversation to go before they realize they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, like I've never really been able to do that. Like that's kind of a thing that's it's like a form of comedy or like something people do
Sure.
with, I don't know, like YouTube or whatever. Like, oh, I'm gonna do this prank and like,
Yeah.
you know.
I remember watching, this is years ago now, like prank videos and stuff like that. Nowadays I feel like this is a bullying video or it's set up. It's one or the other. I feel like a lot of these pranks, there's no real pranks anymore. But yeah, back in the days I'd consider that, but like I don't want to harass people. I don't want to bully people. And I also don't want to fake it.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, no, I like seeing how far you can lead a conversation on, generally, just seeing how far you can push it. Not in an offensive way either, just from an awkward perspective. It's always kind of entertaining, just seeing where people's lines are before you go, all right, it's fine, don't worry about it. And you walk away. You have to give them an out. But yeah, how many episodes into your show are you here? Curious.
Like 164 maybe.
Oh, okay. You're close. Yeah, you're close to where we're at. Like I said, I did 179 just about an hour ago. So we're getting there. Like I said, by the end of this week, we'll have 184 episodes recorded.
Oh,
so
cool.
we'll be getting close. Like I said, 3.5 years in. Every anniversary we hit, I get less and less excited for an anniversary episode because they always demand bigger and better. And I'm like, I don't know what you want from me. I'm not a celebrity. 5, especially for like the weird anniversaries. The 1-year anniversary was like, all right, we'll get a bunch of the guests back.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Then 2, 3, and 4, I'm like, I don't think these are landmark anniversaries. 5 will be more entertaining. We did, our 1 year and then our 100th episode were the ones we did that were more spectacle. That being said,
yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think I only jokingly did those, like, oh, it's my 100th episode, but yeah. So you do them like once a week?
They release once a week. My recording schedule for it is all over the place. Like I said, this week we have 7, and that'll get us scheduled out for a bit. We do that from time to time, whether it'll be a lot of times I try and keep it at least 1 in advance, like, or 1 in the bucket. You know, like if episode 150 was coming out this week, I'd have hoped to have episode 151 recorded already. That way, in case I have a scheduling conflict, I don't have to worry about trying to figure out last minute how to make it work so I don't miss it. I haven't missed any weeks so far, so I'm hoping to keep it that way. So by scheduling a bunch out in advance, it's a nice and convenient safety net. But yeah, I don't know. There's been times where we've come close to missing a week, but we haven't yet. And I don't know. I like having that consistency.
Yeah.
It's sort of like having a habit.
Yeah. Yeah. You said you like record them in advance, and I don't really do that. I mean, I probably should, but one reason was I was like, well, I might miss something, a current topic I want to talk about, but I don't always talk about those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only issue we have sometimes. And we do discuss current topics sometimes, especially if it's closer to the release date. But we have so many guests on where the topics that we cover are their content, their growth, and just kind of what their career trajectory is, whether it be, a content creator or someone in like, a writer or film producer or whatever. So it's not necessarily topical. We don't have to have a fast release date for it. If we do have someone come on that is topical, I'll just adjust the release schedule. It doesn't really affect anyone since nothing that they're talking about generally is too time pressing.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, having guests, it would be trickier to. Do you have people cancel much, or?
Yeah, it happens. So I think it's a combination of like the schedule just being tight sometimes. And I think there's I wouldn't say this happens often, but I feel like there's probably a couple of times where people just get cold feet. You know, maybe it's their first time guesting on another show and they're not really, I mean, when you do it yourself, it's you sitting in a room talking, especially if it's a solo show, it's just you talking to a microphone. You're not getting any feedback immediately, right?
Yeah.
But if you're on someone else's show, it's like, oh, I'm nervous. Like, I don't know how this other person's going to be. I don't know if they're like how their audience is going to be. I can see how it could be a lot more self-conscious about it. And that's part of why we do audio only most of the time. I feel like it helps relax people a bit more, especially with the buffer at the beginning. I think generally I try to do a couple minutes beforehand where it's like, hey, just ease up. It's fine. Don't need to worry about it. I can edit it if we need to. You know, we're just going to have a conversation. There's nothing to worry about. And I think it helps relax people most of the time. And then as opposed to, hey, you're on camera, look your best if you're concerned about it. I feel like that's the major hurdle people would probably have coming on a show is if they're not used to it being on camera. I don't care either way. There's nothing I can do to make myself look better.
Yeah. Plus, it's like, it's a conversational thing. It's not like you're like, all right. And then you start like interrogating them.
Yeah. I have always tried to make it more conversational. There's been a couple of them where they are more professional than us in the sense of like, here's some topics we want to cover. Can you send us a list of questions you're going to ask? I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. If that's what you want, that's fine. And it is a bit more regimented. And even then, I try and forcibly get it to go, not necessarily off the rails, but more into like the conversational side of things. Because it's, I think more often than not, it's easier to listen to when it's a conversation as opposed to a strict interview.
Yeah.
I think interviews work well for print, which might not make sense for an audio podcast, but a lot of times you'll see if you like read interviews online, you'll see like the person speaking is in like normal font, and then the person answering the questions is in bold, and those are just transcripts of actual conversations they're having. I think recording in that way is easy for it's easier for interview style to get information from people. But I think it's easier to get an idea of who the person is and, you know, how they are as a person and just get a feel for them when it's more of a conversation as opposed to them trying to come up with answers quickly and appease the interviewer.
Yeah, some of those really high production, I guess I'm thinking of like NPR or something, but there's other podcasts too where it's like super high production. It almost sounds like they could have, each question could have been edited like they cut out every little conversational thing, and then
I think it depends what you're going for too. It depends what you're looking for. I mean, for us, it's more entertainment. Obviously, we'd like educating the audience at times if that's what the guest is interested in. You know, when we have Phil Arkansas was a film producer we had on, owner of our Arc Media. They do like B movies essentially. And that was more educational than laid back conversation. But that was also because I was like, this is a good opportunity to educate people on how films are produced, like what goes into it, why they do some things as opposed to others and things like that. I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to educate people as opposed to just having a laid back conversation. There have been, you know, other guests that are like that as far as like paramedics and things. So I think you can walk a fine line with it sometimes. You keep it entertaining while also being educational, and you just got to know when to push it one way or another. And then obviously when we have content creators on, it's more focused on the entertainment as opposed to the educational side of it. But it depends what the person's into. I try to make it more about the guest than the overarching narrative that our show is, which is just entertainment focused with the ridiculous fantasy themed description story.
Oh yeah. So did you start the podcast like, I just want to have on anyone who's like a creator or something?
It was I don't know what it was like when you first started yours, but it was 3 of us originally. It was myself, my friend Kyle, and another guy we knew called Frost. And we recorded 3 like test run episodes which we weren't going to release. We just recorded 3 of them just to see the setup and how it was going to work out and everything. And it went terribly, to say the least. They were playing Minecraft at the same time. So it was me sitting at my computer recording everything in like, I didn't have the same setup I have now. I was living in a different place. And yeah, they were playing Minecraft while I'm like professionally as best I can trying to run a podcast. And I'd be like bringing up conversations, topics and things like that. And they'd be talking about mining for diamonds. And so it didn't go exceptionally well. And then I think we got into it thinking, oh, we'll just have like a laid back conversation. And the issue I had with that was like, well, why would anyone listen to that? We're not famous, so people have no inherent reason to want to listen to us. And so I was like, we need to, reach out to people we know that do interesting things as well, and try and meet interesting people and talk to them. And so that's when I started reaching out to, people we knew. We got paramedics on. I reached out on Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, anywhere I could find people. And just reached out to them, contacted them, tried to get them to come on the show. And, it's worked out. 180 episodes. We have 179 main episodes, and we've had, I don't remember which one, episode 132 and a half or something. We've had stuff like that, little special one-off episodes we've done.
Oh, yeah.
Which is annoying for the sake of like publishing them, because you'll go through like iTunes podcasts or something, or Apple Podcasts, and try and find it, and it's just not in the right place. And it's doing special episodes is a pain as far as organizing them. But yeah, having guests come on is a great way to keep things fresh. If it's just me sitting there every week, nobody would want to listen to me. I don't have nearly enough stuff going on in my life to just chat about, as opposed to having a unique, fresh take on every single week for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, I think I sort of talked about it on your podcast, but it was like a sort of an extension, because I was doing stand up, and I was like, well, I had listened to, stuff like Bill Burr's podcast and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not that into listening to podcasts with guests every time. It's only if I like the guests, like, but yeah, now I try to at least kind of look into current things that I'll talk about. So at least I can say, because like when people used to ask, like, what's your podcast about? I would be like, it does sound not at all interesting to say. I just talk about.
It's weird trying to explain to people like what your podcast is about. Like even on ours, I'm like, all right, where do I begin with this? Like when I was updating our website, I was like, what do I even put here at this point? And I just tell people it's a variety podcast where we chat with people on every end of the spectrum about everything, and just try and keep it as interesting as possible. Trying to have as many unique takes as possible. And it's, I don't know, it's interesting. It's also weird, like going back and listening to it. Like I don't listen to our podcast very often. I go back and I listen to them to edit them. But it's super rare that I'll like go onto my phone while I'm driving to work or something and put on my own podcast. I'm like, this is creepy. I'm hearing myself come out of my car speakers. What's going on?
Yeah, that is. For some reason, I can listen fine when it's just me, but when I talk to someone, I'm like, I don't want to listen to. But that was more like people I know thought it was weird too. They were like, I'll listen to your podcast and I'll like start responding like I'm talking to you.
It's funny watching people who aren't, not necessarily older, but like people who are not as familiar with podcasts or like the formatting of it, watching them get into it. I might have mentioned this when you were on the show as well. I know I've mentioned it on the show. Like people in my immediate like family and stuff like that getting into podcasting and thinking they're like the first person to do it almost. Or it's like, oh, I found this new cutting edge thing called podcasting. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, doing that. And that's like, oh, and then another person getting into it. I'm like, it's like, oh, we're doing this thing called podcast. I'm like, it's happening. It's happening. People, the memes are right. Everyone has a podcast now. I'm part of the problem. It's I don't know. It's weird. And then I'm very much to the mindset like I separate like my online life, like from Jester Productions. I separate it a lot from my personal life then. And so it's weird, like hearing family members talk about something that I do, and like listen to them talk about like the challenges of marketing it and trying to get new people. I'm like, I can help you with that, but I'd rather not dive in deep on why I have all this information and why I'm so experienced with a lot of it. Thankfully, it helps the fact that I work in marketing full time as a career. It's a good fallback excuse. Because the last thing I need is my family to start listening to my podcast and having questions about it. Especially since we've made mocking my sister a real tentpole topic on the show. Yeah, I don't know. It's been an interesting experience. Just watching a lot of the growth of the people I've worked with from the start, how their content has changed, how our own content has changed. I mean, when I started out at a Blue Yeti microphone, I have this now of the Shure SM7B. I've updated my audio interface, new computers, new monitors. I've moved, just updating everything. And it's when you're trying to figure it out yourself, you have to learn a lot of new skills, and it really helps you grow. And it's just really interesting, like looking back, like, oh, I didn't know how to do any of this back then for the most part. And I don't know, it's been an interesting experience. I don't know if you've recognized any change in your skill set or interest in starting your show because of doing the show.
Yeah, I guess about yeah, well, just recently about like I guess I didn't know how doing video can kind of, you need a good computer.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, we did especially with streaming when I was doing Twitch a lot more. I'd be able to record it from like the Xbox, PlayStation, whatever, fine. And then we tried switching to playing PC games and watching as the streams just refused to work at that point. And I was like, oh, I need to upgrade my computer. I can barely run Among Us. This is a problem. And
yeah, I mean, like mine was just like shutting down all of a sudden. There was no sign of like slowing down. It would just shut off, which was worse actually.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, at least on my end, it would be like, oh, I'm dropping frames, and it's like stuttering. Whatever, I can work with this. I can figure out a solution. If your computer just shuts off, there's no warning. You can't tell the audience, hey, this is about to happen. It's just done. Yeah, I don't have it in here. I bought a new gaming laptop, actually. Just got it in on Friday, I guess it was. So I'm like getting stuff set up for that as well. Because the computer I have now is actually a gaming computer, but I don't really play a lot of games on it for the most part. It's just designed to be able to run everything I need for the show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I sort of knew a little. Well, I knew about audio recording because I went to that's what I majored in kind of at Bloomsburg University.
We talked about that on the show. Yeah, you mentioned going there, and I was like, no way, this guy knows about this place. This place in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it was yeah. Well, I mean, my job now is because of my graduate degree. Audio recording, even when I went, which was before 2010, or that's when I graduated. But yeah, like it still was. I mean, yeah, audio, like the music industry was kind of going on the downhill slope then.
Yeah.
So it's kind of was a dream job, even though you get a degree in it or whatever. But at least I went to a college, not like a just recording school, which was like really expensive. And it's just you don't really get a degree. You don't get much out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I mentioned when you were on the show too, like when I was graduating high school, going into college, I had no idea what it was I wanted to do. And looking back at it, I'm like, that's probably the best thing that could have happened, is not just sticking it out for 4 years, getting a degree in something I had no interest in, actively hated as far as like the computer coding went, programming. Oh my God, I would have lost my mind if that was my full-time job right now. On top of having all that debt to pay off, like, oh, at least I hate my job, get to pay off the degree as well. That would have been miserable. But yeah, it's weird. Like even now, like I feel like I learned so much better just being self-taught, and just the resources you have nowadays, I feel like are a lot different. I feel like
Yeah.
going to college isn't as necessary for a lot of things. I mean, how often can you just go on YouTube and figure out how to solve something in like 10 minutes? You don't need to go to school, learn how to, I mean, you could do that for other things anyway, but you know, for computer programming in general, like or coding, I'll use coding as an example. You can just go on to Chat GPT and ask it to create a line of code for you and plug it in. But back in the day, it'd be like, go to school, learn how to code in Java. That'll never go out of style, and you'll be set. Now I just look up on my bookshelf. I've got my big Java book up there. You can almost see it up there in the very right there. Yeah, it's. I don't know why I still have that. It's literally useless at this point. But
Yeah, I didn't really do code. Well, my graduate degree, they did a like HTML class, and my first job was we did some ActionScript and JavaScript a little bit, and even that little bit was like, I can't do this. This is like, I don't know if it's people that are good at math can do it well.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like like right now, like on one hand, it's like, it's just gibberish. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, I recognize some of this at least. I can understand what it's supposed to do. I couldn't tell you how it does it, but I understand what it's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave that to the more professionally inclined website developers and whatnot. I'm happy to just use Squarespace or, any other web developer or anything like that. It's just, I can't be bothered with the coding. If I need something, I'll just Google it, Chat GPT, whatever. It's so much easier. But
yeah, so you went there. You said you left Bloomsburg, and then did you take marketing somewhere else, or?
I went when I was in high school. I took summer classes. I went to NC State. I was going there for I was taking a graphic design class. Then I was like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this. I mean, even to this day, I still enjoy design and things like that, but I like doing it on my own terms, like if I had to sit there and do, make a logo for a company just because that's my job, I don't think I'd enjoy it. I like having the creative freedom as opposed to being boxed in, like, this is what we need you to do. I did that, took a class on human biology at UNC. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do like, something with the, medical field or something. Couldn't be bothered to do that. Realized very quickly, I feel like in the medical professional field, you just have no life more often than not.
Yeah.
It seems, just based on people I know, just how busy they are all the time. And I'm sure I'm completely wrong about it. They still have lives, but I don't know. It's not what I want to do. I don't like the idea of being on call, things like that. So yeah, then I went to Bloomsburg just because it was a hometown school, and went for computer. Yes, it was computer programming. I forget what the actual course was called then. Computer science. That's what it was. And I was there for a semester, and I was like, it's not working out. It's not what I want to do. It's not worth me investing my time and money into being here if I'm not going to be happy, and I don't really know exactly what it is I want to do. So I left and went to work for a nearby university. And while I was there, I educated myself on marketing and got a career in marketing going. That's what I've been doing since. I don't know how it worked out. Somehow it has. I'm happy with it.
Do you think that's helped you promote the podcast? And
for sure. I think kind of going back to the beginning of it, I think having those different experiences at the different universities and realizing, what it is I'm interested in, knowing how to keep the balance of work and hobby to an extent. Like, it's like when I was Twitch streaming, for example, I enjoyed doing that at first, and then very quickly I was like, oh, this is sucking the fun out of streaming and just playing video games in general when it becomes a like 48 50 hour a week job. It's not quite as entertaining. So yeah, like realizing like, oh, how I want to keep some of that stuff separate was was eye-opening. But then, yeah, like I think it taught me a work ethic, having not gone to school and just kind of making those connections, being forced to make those connections myself and teach myself, and learning how to balance work and life was important, because I had to work a full-time job to get by, because I wasn't in school. So I got a job and taught myself outside of that. So balancing a lot of that taught me a work ethic, and I think that's helped a lot. As far as, I mean, I mentioned it on the podcast I just recorded earlier. Even still, it's hard to manage, life and podcasting and the brand and everything like that. Still, it's a lot of work. But having that strong work ethic as the background is super important. I think that's what provided it to me, especially since I started when I was in high school. I worked a bunch of crappy jobs. Worked at like a grocery store, and then I went to a Dollar General. I was like, man, these are horrible. These companies are terrible to work for. They don't care about you at all. And so just realizing, like, it taught me an appreciation for the people that do those jobs. I feel like a lot of times those people are really underappreciated as well. You go into that store and you just think, oh, some person that couldn't hold a real job. It's like, there's probably a good chance that they're just trying to get by. They don't have the means to go to school or whatever. Like, there's a bunch of people that work those careers where, they have kids and they don't have time to go to night classes while working a full-time job while being a parent. It gives you an appreciation for a lot of those types of jobs. Makes you treat them a little bit better, maybe. But it certainly helped me in my professional and personal life then too, to balance everything and keep working towards improving myself and my career and help take care of the people around me.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have a lot of those retail jobs, and I guess brutal. At some point, but I was also like, in bands with my brother, and for a little while I was like, the band's gonna make it, and then I was just thinking that maybe that ties into, like, because I was the same way. Like, I didn't know exactly. I did go to. I went to. Well, me and my brother went to community college first, and then I went away to Bloomsburg. But I didn't exactly know. That's why I did the recording, because I was like, well, I did music.
Yeah.
But then I was like, other countries. Like, sometimes you talk to people from like another country that came here, and they're like, yeah, we just know exactly. From like third grade, we are preparing. In America, we're just like, maybe my band's gonna get somewhere.
I feel like the way a lot of their schools are structured could be different as well, where it's more geared towards career and life development. Or I feel like ours is teaching you how. I feel like ours is based around teaching you how to learn, as opposed to how to succeed necessarily. Like, I don't know. It's like it's very different depending on what school you go to. Even like talking to my girlfriend when she was in high school, they learned a lot of different stuff than we did. And we're like 45 minutes away, an hour away. And it's, like, just based on like my experience in high school was, just learning, like math, taking math classes, English classes, science, whatever, just the generic high school type classes. It didn't really prepare you for life in general. Whereas I feel like a lot of, overseas, a lot of them might be more geared towards that, teaching you, hey, what are you looking at going into? You can take classes geared towards that career path, maybe. And it gives you a bit more time and experience in that field to really figure out if that's what you want to go into after you graduate or not. Like, I would have really appreciated in school, like having a class for, filing taxes, figuring out how to put together a resume, apply for jobs and interviews and stuff like that. That's stuff we never learned in school. I don't know if that was your experience or not, but that sort of stuff is super important, and just we had no education on it whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, when I was a senior, I did a half-day like work co-op thing where you.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But, well, I guess it helped with, I don't know, they tried to give interview tips, maybe resume, but still it wasn't but still, I went to college, took all these loans out.
Yeah.
And kind of just was like, I'm gonna go away to college. Like, it was more like, I'm just going.
It just seemed like that was the path to take. It was like, of course I'll graduate high school and go to college.
Yeah, I just thought I kind of was like, I'll just work in an office or something boring
Yeah.
that's not McDonald's, but uh yeah, there's tons of life skills they should teach kids, but
Like it is baffling me. Like filing taxes, to me, it's like unbelievably easy for the most part. We've had to do filing taxes for the business side of stuff for the Jester Productions
oh yeah.
is a nightmare. That part is a nightmare. Like before I dealt with Jester Productions, like filing my personal taxes was so easy, and I was like, I couldn't understand why people had a hard time with it. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, there are probably people that don't have resources to utilize, people they know that can help them with it. Like I could see how it could be confusing. It's weird that we have to file our taxes to begin with. You don't do that in a lot of the other countries. You just get a thing on the mail saying, "Hey, this is how much you paid in taxes. This is where your money went to." But
yeah, I did just find out recently that's not that old of a, or that's sort of still new, that they randomly were like, we're paying taxes now.
yeah,
And that they use like Disney characters to explain it to people or something.
yeah, like filing taxes. Like I said, like creating a resume. Like that's one of the most important things you can do for yourself is have a good resume, help you get a career. Like have the resume, and then obviously be able to sit there and do the interview. Like it's so weird to me. Like that's not an important part of like the educational process of like not. I think most people can figure out like, oh, here's literally what a resume is and how to fill it out, but like making it look even somewhat professional. You
Yeah.
know, how often do you? I mean, working in a position where like I've hired people, I don't know how many resumes I've got where it's like, oh, this is, my, I'll make up the thing, but like I worked in retail. It's like, I stocked shelves and I did this and whatever. It's like telling people what you did for your job isn't as important as telling people what your accomplishments were on a resume. Like if you work in
Yeah.
sales, saying like, "Oh, I made outbound sales calls, and you know, I I'll just use my own example. Made outbound sales calls, sold advertisement. You could put that on a resume, or you could, step it up and be like, hey, I increased, our revenue by 15% last, over the course of this month, and over the course of my tenure here, increased it by 125%. I organized our sales and was able to increase, customer retention by 20%. Like having the accomplishments on your resume is so much more important than just saying what your tasks were, because it doesn't mean you did your job well if you're just putting that down. It just says what you were asked to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it did take me forever to learn that. Like not till I was in college and looked into it. But yeah, I used to put, I mean, when you're just doing those crap shitty retail jobs.
Yeah, I don't think it's as important then. But if you're trying to like get a more quote unquote professional job, or whatever, it's a bit more important because it helps you stand out from the people that they would look at as being, oh, this is just somebody who might not necessarily be as qualified. Yeah, and then go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I used to put, and I don't know where I learned this, but it was just like I had a skills section, but it was just generic, like communication. And
yeah.
I'm reliable, and it's all like, I don't know. And then at some point I saw like, oh, put things you've done at the job.
Yeah, no, mine was like I had updated mine not terribly long ago. And I forget what I had put on it. And it was, but I know Chat GPT was starting to get bigger, and I was like, oh, I'll just put coding down. I can do computer coding. And it's like, I use Chat GPT to do it. It'll make the code for me, but I'll put that down as a skill. Why not? Yeah, and for the most part, it's stuff like that where it's like, yeah, I have a marketing background now. I'll put that down. Ad sales, Google ads, Facebook ads, like stuff like that. That's actually relevant, and it is vital to, especially smaller businesses, to help them grow. Having like a marketing and advertising background is super helpful for trying to get a career. But I know a lot of people, the hardest part for them is, even if they do apply for a job and get asked for an interview, is the awkward interview stage where you go in and people are nervous and they don't know how to handle it, and they're just sitting there sweating or clamming out their hands and whatever. And I do not have that problem. I'll go in and just run my mouth until they've heard enough, and either offer it to me or not.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because I used to just like try to memorize the right answers, and it really never helped. I mean, just probably being, I don't know, if you're good, I don't think I'm good at it. Do you just kind of like be yourself?
What's that? I think it helps if you like research the company a bit. Like where I'm working now, I knew nothing about them. I knew nothing about like the types of products they put together or anything like that. And so I was like, all right, let me look into them. Let me do some research. And I'm not talking like I'm sitting there for hours or anything. It's like 20 minutes. I go on their website. I look over the stuff. I write a couple notes down on my notebook. Just be like, all right, I'll keep these things in mind during the interview, and I just refer to it. And I think it helps having the information, but I think it also shows them like, oh, this person took the initiative. They at least put some effort into, investigating us and actually getting an idea of, what we are like as a company. And it shows that you at least you care enough to do that, which I think stands out amongst the majority of other people that might be applying for that job. I mean, in my case, I was fortunate in that I didn't even apply for it. They just reached out to me directly. Yeah. They saw my resume on Indeed and reached out to me. I was like, oh, did the work for me. Okay, sure. Why not? Give it a shot. But I think doing the research helps, just having some information about them, so you don't go in there completely blind as to what it is you're applying for.
Yeah. I mean, then if I'm looking for jobs now, I basically just look to see if the company has too much woke language in the description.
There was go ahead, sorry. I was gonna say there was a position I had looked at. I never even applied for it, but I don't know if woke was the right word for it, but it was just like, oh, they were. I guess that would be there. We try and be as diverse as possible and this and that, and it was just they were too. I don't want to say too open-minded, but I think you understand what I'm saying. Where it's just like we want to make sure we're treating everyone like with this much respect. We have like these that like they had like it seemed like their whole work culture was based around let's go out of our way to like have like extra meetings talking about diversity and stuff. And I'm like, I'm glad you're open-minded about it. I'm glad you're like trying to like take care of your employees, but I'm also just here to get to make money and grow myself and have my career. Like I'm not here to take diversity lessons every day.
Yeah, that's you base. I mean, yeah, basically it's like, okay, many companies kind of just have that now because it's seen as necessary, and then other ones you're like, okay, there's no getting around this with this company. It'll be like a struggle session when we
yeah. Like I said, there's a fine line to walk between a lot of it where it's like, yeah, you should, you don't want to just sit there and like prevent people from working for you just because you don't like who they are as a person based on whatever personality trait or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, let's not make our entire company culture based around, diversity and everything like that. We're here to work and get a job done. Yeah. Hire the best people for the job. That's all it should be about for the most part.
Yeah. So like Dead Jester you're like the CEO.
Yeah. We, like I said, we had 3 people for a while. Oh. I had a couple of artists and editors on retainer, and I had still work. I have them where I still reach out to them and put them in contact with other content creators. But I don't have any actual employees at this point, which is fine. I'm happy with it being me. I mentioned on the show I recorded earlier where we've just been refocusing everything. I still have a part-time co-host in Klaus. He's on every other show roughly. But yeah, it's I've been refocusing a lot. So it's a lot of mainly focusing on the podcast, and then I call it the Jester Productions partner program, which is where I work with other content creators to help them grow their platforms and help them learn how to market themselves. And as opposed to doing it for them, it's more of a educational sort of program where it's teaching them the skills they need to do it, so they don't rely on me to do it for them. Because I feel like it's better that way. I don't want to teach people to rely on me. I feel like that's a kind of a parasitic relationship where it's, hey, give me money, I'll deal with your problems for you, but you'll never be able to get out of the cycle and do it yourself. I'd rather them learn how to do it themselves and be able to grow themselves and learn how to, rely on themselves as opposed to somebody else. And I think it'll help them grow that way. So it's me focusing on all of it myself right now, doing all of the back end work, and I still maintain the contacts for all of the artists and editors and things like that, even if they don't directly work for me at this point. Still keep in touch. They're still happy to work with all of the people I work with. So
yeah. Do you think so? You started when you started, were you like, come on guys, like you were the most into doing a podcast out of the four?
Yeah, it was. I don't want to sit here and pretend like I did everything myself, because that's just not true. I think all three of us at the same time were sort of like, oh yeah, we'll do a podcast, that's fine, whatever. It was even on that front, I was the one with the know how to do it and actually make it a thing. But I don't, like I said, I'm not going to take credit and pretend like it was all my idea. What was me was the website, the branding of it, and getting the merchandise and stuff. Like I'm very much the business minded side of all of it at the start. They were very much we want to make content, how do we do it sort of thing, which is perfectly fine. I mean, if that eased it up on me a lot, because I could just do the job, and then I didn't have to focus on, like managing other people or anything like that at the time. I could just have them come in, record the content, and handle it on my end. And generally speaking, the recording of the content is a lot longer of a process, because when you think about like Twitch, for example, when we were doing streaming on Twitch and then uploading to YouTube, it's like 8 hours of Twitch recording to get 20 minutes of YouTube content, because we're cutting it down, taking the best parts.
Oh, yeah.
So like having them do a lot of the streams and the all that sort of content was great for me, because it's like I don't have to sit around for 6 to 8 hours and record everything. It's like I can just show up to the podcast and just edit everything on my own terms outside of that. But yeah, so like I said, when we launched the podcast, I knew, all right, this is when episode 1 is coming out. And so I had the website launch at the same time. We had merchandise launch at the same time, podcast come out, like socials and everything like that. Like it was just everything started right at once. It was all worked on in advance, but had everything launch at the exact same time and just get the ball rolling. So we hit the ground running. Since then, like I said, my 2 original co-hosts have left. They've gone on for different reasons. The one left pretty early on. He was not interested in doing it at all. Wasn't committed at all. And I was like, whatever. I'm not gonna hate on him for it. It's fine. Then my other co-host Kyle left a year and a half ago now, roughly, maybe something like that. He just had stuff coming up in his personal life he wanted to focus on. Then after that, he realized he was happier not having to deal with the commitment of the brand and everything. So he's a lot happier now. I'm happy for him. And so I've been rolling along, taking everything as it comes.
Yeah, like so the name and the descriptions you do, is it kind of like I don't know, I guess it reminds me of like role-playing games or something. I don't know.
Yeah, if you go back, so like to give people insight, like the description for every one of our podcast episodes is part of like a broader like fantasy themed story, like medieval fantasy. And I guess Dungeons and Dragons to an extent, even though I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but it's that style of fantasy, like high fantasy, I guess they'd call it. It started out very basic, or like I forget what episode 1 is, but it's like, oh, our heroes, embark on their journey. They talk about this, and that was it. It was like 1 or 2 sentences, and then over time it evolved into like, I forget, like episode 100, I think is like 11 to 12 paragraphs. If you go on Apple Podcasts, you can't even read the whole thing. It was a mess, but I'm like, I enjoy typing it out. I enjoy the story of it. So like now I've cut back a bit where it's like 2 or 3 paragraphs maybe. But yeah, it's literally like a few different characters, completely irrelevant to the actual podcast. It has nothing to do with it. It's just there because I enjoy it. I think it's the one thing that ties every episode together. It's the overarching plot, irrelevant to the actual podcast itself, but it's the overarching part that connects every episode. And it's just, it's these characters in a fantasy setting making their way. They meet up with some allies along the way, and they're growing. And we're getting close to another major like plot point in it, I suppose you could say. There's been a couple. There's I won't spoil it if people want to go back and read through them. I'm working on combining it into an actual like short story, so it's a little bit easier for people to read. It's a bit of a pain based on the way it started because I have to fill in a lot of the gaps and I have to make it a bit easier to read since it won't be like in a podcast description format. But yeah,
are you doing? Did you have an overall when you started doing it, like or were you like the show Lost, where they said at first they were just not expecting it to keep going, and then
at first, the first, I forget how long, first number, 10, 12 episodes or whatever were sort of like that, and then you can tell, like if you go back and look at the earlier episodes, you can tell when I first started putting effort into the descriptions, and but yeah, then after a while I was like, okay, I know what I want to do with this to an extent. I mean, it's not like I have an end point in mind by any means, but I have like story points that I want to hit on, and it all feeds back. Like I do a lot of writing outside of the Jester Productions brand. Like I do actual like writing, and the podcast description story is essentially like a side plot. It runs parallel to the story that I write in my personal life, like in my personal writing rather. So it fits into the same world, but it's has nothing to do with it. It's still a little thing. But I do make references between the two.
Like a flash sideways. Wasn't that what they called it in Lost? Like they had.
You might be right. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it's like imagine having like the Justice League and like their movie and they're fighting, dealing with the villains and everything. And then you have the side character who are like the Manhattan police trying to stop a bank robbery that's in progress while all the heroes are fighting Superman. Yeah. It has nothing to do with the main plot, but it's happening. It's also going on. That's sort of like the podcast description stories are. They're a bit more extravagant at times, but that's how it is in the relation to like the main story that I write. But yeah, I don't know. It's been fun watching it all grow and seeing how it's changed over time. It started out a lot more organic. It's gotten a lot. I don't want to say it's gotten a lot more business focused. I mean, it has to an extent with the partner program, which is sort of like a business to an extent, but it's still very laid back. But I've gotten a lot more professional focused, I think is a better way of putting it. It's a lot more professional focused, professional centric, information based, where it's centered around the podcast more, as opposed to being really spread out over the podcast, Twitch, YouTube, and everything like that. We've just narrowed it down, made it more refined, and that's what we're working on right now.
Yeah, so the partner thing, that's not like the sometimes I'll get emails like, we'll help grow your podcast to this many people, and I'm like, how are you gonna guarantee that they listen?
That's the thing. I mentioned it on our show a lot too, where it's like I can help people, like I can give them the tools they need in order to promote their stuff, but I always make a point like I'll say like I'll use, and this is the example I used on our show, was YouTube, where it's like I can help you set it up so you have the best possible opportunity to like come up better in results, but I'm not going to guarantee you the top result. I'm not going to guarantee you views or anything like that. I can't do that. That's not how it works. No one can do that. But I can guarantee that you're in the best possible position to attempt to do that. And so like that's sort of what we're going for, is to give people the tools they need in order to do as well as they can. And then think of it like a retail store, right? If you're selling clothing, I can get people to the door and in the store for you. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to sell your own product. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if I bring someone in the door and all of your t-shirts look like crap, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't make the content for you and then promote it for you. It's not my job. But I can give people tips on content making, at least to an extent. You know, I can say like, here's how the editing can work. Here's how you can improve your audio, things like that. But I try, and for the most part, to leave people to their own devices to make their content that they want to make, how they want to make it. Because if I get too in depth with it, it ends up turning out where it's like, oh, this feels like Jester Productions content, and that's not what I want. I don't want people to make my content. If that makes sense. Yeah. It's like I want you to your content to have your own feel to it. I want it to be yours. I'll just provide tips on like how you can touch it up to make it a bit more streamlined and clean.
Yeah, number one, buy followers.
Yeah, what you want to do is sub for sub, buy followers on every platform you can, and just spam your content, just ads everywhere. Make it as uninteresting as possible, as generic as possible. If you can, just copy Mr. Beast in every aspect. That's how you succeed.
Yeah, that was one of the things I heard people on YouTube, like all these like tricks they do for. It's like, oh, make crazy thumbnails, and I start like can only make fun of that stuff. Like, I can't ever seriously do anything like that. Like,
yeah, there was when Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom came out. I was watching a couple like videos on YouTube, like, oh, how do you do this and whatever, and then I would get recommended videos for it then because I had searched for it, and I would see like I would look for something. Every single video had like not the same thumbnail, but the exact same style. Every single one of them had the same, and it's every single one of them was a different person. I'm like, these people are all putting out the exact same thumbnail, exact same content. It's like you're just copying each other. One of these persons is the first one to do it, and everyone else is copying them. I don't know who it is,
I know.
It's just clones. And yeah, it annoys me. I'm like, it's hard to find originality in a lot of the content anymore. That combined with like the way it's all just so marketed and it's so advertising based. I had a discussion with my little brother over the weekend. He's turning 10 in August, and he watches like Mr. Beast and I forget the other one, Preston Plays, I think is what he said.
Oh,
I'm not familiar with Preston Play. I don't know who that is or what he does, but my little brother watches their content, I guess. And he's like, well, they don't do ads. I'm like, all right, let me pull up a Mr. Beast video. All right, first thing right at the top here is talking about get new merch here. That's an ad. He's like, no, he's not doing, but that's, whatever. And he's like, oh, did he talk about his chocolate? That's an ad. It's like, I'm not to shit on Mr. Beast or anything, but it's like, he's marketed towards kids. His thumbnails are marketed towards kids. The content is for kids. All the products, like if you go to his website, it's all bright, flashy colors and lights and stuff.
Yeah.
All very heavily marketed towards children. He knows his audience. He knows how to sell the product and everything. Not going to hate on him for it. But at the same time, I recognize that it is marketing. It's advertising. My little brother did not want to accept that.
Yeah. Like my friend pointed out, now what he does, he's like just does rich person stuff. He's like, went to this $1 million room and I trashed it or something.
Yeah, that's how you lose your audience pretty quickly when it's something they can't relate to an extent. I can't remember some of the content creators, but it's like I don't know how many times I've seen it where it's like moving into my $10 million mansion. It's like everyone's like, oh, well, you're just a rich piece of crap now.
What to do when you move into your first $10 million mansion?
Yeah, it's like, oh, new house tour. It's like this big estate in Los Angeles, and it's like, oh, you're just another one of those people. Bye. Yeah, back in the day, I was really big in the Call of Duty community when that blew up, like 2008, 2009 ish, and yeah, it was interesting watching a lot of those people because a lot of them were like teenagers, like 14, 15. They're getting like 14 to 18 ish, and then you had older people obviously as well. But then watching those like people who are like in their teens make a bunch of money and then not know how to like manage it at all. And like watching some of them, lose it all because they spend it on stupid stuff. And then another one, a few of them where it's like, oh, they actually held on to it or whatever, or invested it reasonably. It's like, oh, a couple of them actually came out of it looking like reasonable people.
Yeah. Yeah. It does almost become, well, whenever I used to hate on just gaming videos, but now I'm like, well, at least they're playing a game. But then there's also, as soon as reaction videos took off, I was like, what is happening? And then, and then when I realized, oh, everyone's kind of faking the reaction and it's over the top. And then, yeah.
It's weird watching the evolution of a lot of the content online in general. Like, so it started out with like very basic, like, oh, it's just I think the original video on the first one on YouTube was like the guy at the zoo or something. I forget what he was taking a video of. And then, like I said, you move up, you get like Call of Duty commentary and stuff. And obviously, the other games, so that was what I was involved in at the time. And it's like, okay, oh, and now we have HD Call of Duty video with commentary. And now they're not talking about the game, they're talking about their life. And now we're getting the people's personalities into it. Then you get into like streaming, right? And then it's like, okay, now we get reaction content. And who are the guys that tried to do the React channel? I can't remember who. I can't. I feel stupid. They did like the teens React and everything like that, and they tried to copyright React.
Oh, really?
And man, I can't remember what it was.
I remember seeing those come up. Weren't they like
the Fine Brothers? That's who it was.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They tried to copyright React. Like we came up with the reaction idea. It's like you can't come up with the idea of reacting to something. That's a human thing. Yeah, it didn't go well for them, and they've kind of fallen off. But yeah, it's like the React content where it's like, oh, it's very basic. You just sit down, throw a webcam on, maybe a green screen, and you just sit there and watch somebody else's content and react to it, make an over-the-top reaction. And then obviously it evolved into, you had like Twitch gaming turn into just chatting and like pools and spas and stuff like that, where it's like, how did this come about? And then obviously that transitioned into OnlyFans a lot.
Yeah, which is weird because a lot of those girls, it's like it's just their head and they're just gaming. I don't know even get the.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever people are into, I'm not gonna hate on people. But yeah, it is weird. Because I remember back in the day, it's like they used to crack down on that so hard. Where if it wasn't gaming content at all, if it wasn't completely gaming content on Twitch, you'd get banned immediately. And now it's like they've made entire categories for scantily clad women. I'm like, what has Twitch become at this point?
Yeah, and they were like, "Don't say simp because that's our whole."
Yeah,
you know,
like that's we're all simps here. Come on, of course. Yeah, Twitch is definitely like a 2-tiered moderation platform.
Yeah,
where it's like I said, some people get banned for the stupidest thing. Like I forget, a couple of the girls on that platform got banned for just the dumbest thing, like nothing that they've done wrong, where they say something or they have like some sort of accident on stream or whatever, and then you have like barely clothed women just twerking on stream. It's like, how is this allowed? But somebody cursing or saying the wrong word, and they get banned permanently. It's like, what is happening here?
Yeah, that's got to be why. Well, Steven Crowder lasted a while on YouTube, and like that's probably why, because he was so successful. They were like, "Well, all right, you're making a lot of money, so," but he eventually got,
Yeah. Turns out treating your pregnant wife like shit isn't a popular platform.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not surprised when any like online creator, they're crazy, or they're something's wrong with them. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's weird to me, like how people view I'm not saying all like online creators are celebrities, but just in general, like celebrities, how people view them is like, just in general, like you'll see like a celebrity on a talk show and be like, oh man, they seem really down to earth and everything. It's like, this is completely staged. Like anytime this person is on camera, it is staged. Talk shows are staged. They have pre-recording. Oh, my dog's sneaking in behind me. They have like pre-recordings beforehand, like running down, doing like rehearsals and stuff. It's like their publicist is on top of this. Their PR person is saying, this is how you react. This is how you act. Act goofy here, act sort of like mysterious here, or whatever. It's like, this is a character that they're playing. It's so manufactured, so many of these people online. And like I said, even content creators like that, especially the big ones, and it's, you don't know who these people really are most of the time, like how they actually are as people. I mean, you see a lot of these people on stream, like the crazy reactions. It's like, this person probably isn't even entertained by half the videos they're watching in their reaction channels. They're just acting it up for the camera to get some clicks, views, and money. Yeah,
there was one category that was like, well, it's still going on, I guess, probably, but it's like vocal coach reacts to singing and they all are always blown away.
Yeah.
And I saw one guy that was doing that, but he was only honest one, and he was like, "Look, this doesn't make sense that you would be blown away."
Yeah.
There's I love everything.
There's one. I don't know if I forget what the channel is that does it, but they have like professionals in the field reacting to that sort of thing. And one of them was like a guy reacting to like shipwrecks in movies. I don't know if it's Variety or whatever, but yeah, he's watching it, and they get to the Titanic by James Cameron, and he's like watching. He's like, oh, that's real footage, and he's like blown away by it. And then he's like, yeah, I was on these dives with James Cameron actually, and I've been to the Titanic like however many times. It's like, why do you act so like surprised and blown away by this real footage? Like he was there. It's like, yeah, I don't know, but I don't know. You can't trust everything you see online, which is hilarious because that's what like your parents used to tell us. Like parents used to tell us when we're growing up, like, don't trust everything you read online. And now they're the people falling for like the crazy conspiracy theories and hoaxes on Facebook. It's like, oh, I saw on Facebook that, if you don't send, if you don't copy and paste this message, your account gets deleted. It's like, why would that be the case?
Yeah. I mean, they're a little trickier now.
They are, man. I don't know. I feel like a lot of it is just, it's tricky, but it's also common sense to an extent. It's like, would Facebook really email me from this random letters and numbers email address?
Yeah.
Like it just, if you have any basic knowledge about it, you can see through it, but a lot of people don't have that. Not to fault them for it necessarily. Why would they? But I guess it depends on like how much you're on the internet and things like that. Some of it is super tricky though. Like people buying promoted Google results. So they're popping up at the top of Google search results and they're spam links. Like I don't have examples specifically, but like using Facebook as an example, you type in Facebook into Google and you click on the top Facebook link and it's a malware site. They just happen to buy the top result. They outbid everyone else and now they're hacking your bank account or something. I don't know what they do.
Yeah, someone like hacked into my Facebook and changed the password and all that. And like
Facebook is terrible security though.
Yeah, I guess they have no support either because
nope. Yeah, that's happened to my girlfriend twice. She's lost her account.
Oh, really?
Twice. Yeah, I'm like, this is what happens when you use Facebook. They actively do not care about your data and they sell it to other people.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't know why you're surprised that it's getting hacked. They don't care. They know you'll come back on another account. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
that being said, they're losing billions of dollars every year. I forget what they're like $40 billion on this MetaQuest thing. It's so much fun to watch that happen.
Oh, is that a medical thing?
No, it's it's like the virtual reality headset.
Oh yeah,
I forget how much. It's got to be like $40 billion since the start of last year, I think, if not more. And it's like, man, you are just tanking your business for this, thinking it's going to take off, and it just is not going to take off. People aren't ready. People aren't as interested in virtual reality as you want them to be, especially the way they're marketing it. I mean, there's no business I can think of where they would rather have it in a virtual space than just over Zoom. Like, why? From a business standpoint, it doesn't even make sense. Let's spend $2,000 per employee to have this take place in a virtual space when we could do it for free over Zoom.
Yeah, I know. Like the metaverse, like,
to be fair, they added legs to their avatars now, so that might change everything.
Yeah, it just was odd that happened right when lockdowns happened. That made you it made me go, what? It's almost like they hoped lockdowns would happen. They're like, all right, here we go. I mean, because that's the only reason you would, if you were like China with the zero COVID, and the only way you could kind of be somewhere is in a bed, and the graphics were like Nintendo Wii or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I can't do virtual reality. We have the PSVR, the PlayStation VR, and we do that a bit, but I get sick in that still pretty quickly. It's just so disorienting to me. The main thing is like when you move, like your character moves, but you're not moving, and there's that disconnect. That makes me so sick. We tried it. There's Iron Man VR and you look down and you can see the ground rushing up at you, but you're just standing still in the living room. Oh, I lasted literally like 30 seconds, and I was like, I'm gonna throw up. I laid down for like half an hour before I felt better. It was like that. Resident Evil 7 we tried, and I was like, the best ones for me are like the goofy little ones where it's like a job simulator.
Yeah.
The keep talking and nobody explodes. I think it's the bomb defusal one. That one's not too bad because you can literally sit in a chair and do it. You just sit still, you just maneuvering the case around in front of you. It's very simple, very easy on the eyes. So it's stuff like that's pretty straightforward. But yeah, some of the more intense ones where your character's moving around all over the place, that doesn't go well for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted a VR, like ever since I was a kid. It was like virtual reality, like, and I do want one. I don't know, because like the new Half-Life was one.
Oh, Half-Life.
And that was why I was almost gonna get one. That's it.
Yeah.
But
that's the problem. Like they keep coming out with it, and they have one game that's like a standout. Like Half-Life Alyx was one, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. Like this could be really neat. But each headset variant has like one game, and that's it. It's like it's not worth the investment for it. Especially like I forget what I paid for the PlayStation VR. I got it on sale at some point, but even that was a couple $100. Like the new ones like $700 maybe for PlayStation. The MetaQuest I think is like, I might be wrong, $1,200 to $1,400. Apple just announced theirs and it's like $4,000. It's like there's not enough, to go. There's not enough substance with it to be worth it. I mean, you have to understand most of the games that you can get for these are like little arcadey phone style games, like the Beat Saber like sort of stuff. It's very all gimmicky. There's not a lot of substantive gameplay with a lot of them. There are games that are, they're going back and making some of them more VR readily accessible. Like Resident Evil is one. Borderlands 2, Borderlands 3, maybe one. Some Borderlands in some aspect. I know added VR. They're doing that with some of the older games, but I don't think very many like big AAA games are being designed for VR for the most part. And even if they are, it's not as fun of an experience as just playing the game with a controller or mouse and keyboard, because it's just clunky. If you have to hold like the weird controllers in your hands, and it just doesn't work as well. Sometimes it's not intuitive, especially with the movement, the way it works.
Yeah, plus
work well.
You can't have a real small space, right? Like you have to have.
Yeah. Every time we hook it up out in the living room, we're moving the coffee table out of the way, we're clearing space, tripping over the dog.
Yeah, because like I used to have. I remember when like, the motion controls were big. Like there was the Wii, and then like Xbox and PlayStation had those too, and then there was like exercise games.
PlayStation was it PlayStation Move or something? I forget. Yeah. I know that the PlayStation Eye was what it was called. I forget what the whole thing was. Xbox had the Kinect. I think the Xbox One shipped with the Kinect. You had to get it with it at first. I think they cut it off after a while, like after the first round. That's how they dropped the price then. I'll make up a number, but it was like $500 to start with when it first launched. And it came with the Kinect. And then they're like, all right, Xbox One on sale for $300. No Kinect included. The original cost is being removed because there's no Kinect, because it didn't sell.
Yeah.
I got the original Wii when it came out, and to be fair to the Wii, like they actually had the whole console was designed around motion controls. So I mean, there was plenty of games to go with it. And you had Wii Sports, I think, that came with it originally, maybe. The Wii Fit came out at some point later. I don't remember when.
Yeah,
and that had some stuff with it. It was a bit of a revolutionary console because it made motion controls popular. And they actually did it pretty well for the most part, especially given the technology at the time. With the Nintendo Switch, they've kind of redone it, just modernized it slightly.
Yeah. Like I just got a Wii, like an older one.
Oh, okay.
And but with like the Kinect, I was like, we were doing. Well, I guess I'm not into the like using them as like moving around too much. The Kinect, it was like almost exercise, and I'm like, all right, this is like.
Yeah, that was the thing. I remember we got the Wii Fit because like, oh, this is good for like. I mean, I was a kid at the time. I might have been going into high school when that came out. I don't remember. And I remember my mom being like, "Oh, we'll get this. This will be useful." And I was like, "This is just a hassle. I would rather just actually work out.
Yeah.
I'm not getting much out of this, and it's a lot to set up and move everything out of the way just to do this. I would much rather just go downstairs to the home gym and work out down there." Watch TV or play a game while on a treadmill or the bike or whatever. It'd be
Yeah.
easy.
That would kind of be funny to like, oh, I'm doing VR curl, like just lifting a weight.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm doing VR bench press.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know. There's a point where it's just impractical for some of it. But I don't know. With VR, I feel like we're on the cusp of getting the technology right, but there's not enough demand for it, and there's just not enough development going into making games that make the platform worth it. Like I said, you can have like one or two games where it's like, oh, if you already have the the headset, cool, it's definitely worth getting the games for it. But I don't think there's enough games out there to make it worth buying the headset. Like I said, like $700 for some of them. I don't remember what the PlayStation VR 2 is, but it's like, we'll say $500 even. I don't think it's worth spending $500 just for one game.
Yeah. I mean
like Half-Life Alyx, again, I haven't played it. I don't have a headset for the computer, but I've heard it's great, but I don't think it's worth buying an entire VR setup for. I mean, you have to have a pretty good computer to run it and everything. It's just so expensive for one game. That's not that long. It's like 3 or 4 hours, I think, only.
Yeah, I mean, those were the ones I was looking at, the expensive, whatever the Valve one is, because those you
I can't
can
keep track of them.
But yeah, you need a really powerful PC also. So then you're spending the price of two good computers.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's so expensive. Like I said, even Apple, like the Apple one, I'm like, I know that one's $4,000. I'm like, who is going to spend $4,000 on this? It's just not worth it. Their marketing is, I don't know if you saw any of the images of it, but it's like their marketing is like, oh, you can use like a big screen, like you can see through the headset. It's like augmented reality. So like I could be sitting here and looking at the room behind me and having the entire room be like a giant screen. It's like, cool, I guess. Or I could just use a projector or go out in the living room and watch on a big screen. How is this worth $4,000? It's like that. And then they had, the weirdest thing to me was they marketed it where on the outside of the headset, it has cameras facing inward recording your face, and then it projects it on the outside of the headset. So if people walk in, they see your face through the headset, but it's like a video. I'm like, that's the weirdest. Like, just take the headset off. It's the weirdest thing. I'm like, ugh. It's bizarre. I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure in the next 5 to 10 years, they'll have a lot more technology designed for it. It'll be perfected a bit more with the motion controls and how well it actually lines up. You might be able to have less bulky control and just have actual hand movements and whatnot. And the graphics will be a bit better. It'll be more streamlined. It'll be more affordable. So you're not spending, $4,000, $3,000 on a headset that you use at a couple of parties and then put it away forever.
Yeah, I thought I saw some recent episode that you talked about AI with somebody or something.
I've talked about it a couple of times, yeah. Where I know I've mentioned, I don't want to drag it on too long, but like how some of it's overblown, where people are like, oh man, AI is getting so smart, and ChatGPT is it sentient? It's like, no, it's all relatively contained. It's kind of getting blown out of proportion. It's cool. Yeah. It's super useful. But at the end of the day, it's all a very self-contained technology where it's like, it's designed where you ask it, like you provided an input, it provides you an answer. That's it. That's all there is to it. obviously there's other AI out there. But a lot of it's like artistic style where it's like the AI is generating images, and that's a bit more destructive, if you want to call it that, where it's like people are just using AI generated art, selling it, or trying to put other people out of jobs. They have AI generated music where you can mimic voices and put music out for that, or just I know one of the big things lately is they have the former presidents. You have like Barack Obama, you have Joe Biden, Trump, George Bush. Like they have like the president plays on YouTube where they're playing like different games and stuff like that, which are kind of entertaining. Like stuff like that. And I know a lot of people are like, oh man, AI is like, it's getting to the point where it's dangerous, and it's really not. But you have a lot of commentators, like if you watch like mainstream news, like CNN, Fox, like that sort of stuff, as far as mainstream goes, their whole thing is, drumming up drama and blowing things out of proportion. That's how they get people to watch. Anytime anything happens, like, is this the end of our democracy? I mean, if you turn on Fox or CNN, you watch like, with President Trump being indicted, you watch CNN, they're like, this is, our country's being saved right now. But if you switch to Fox, they'll say, this is the downfall of our country. We're on the verge of a civil war. And it's like, it's just, it's outrage, from either side. Just everything is taken to 110% just to get people excited, tune in thinking that big things are happening and they need to be upset or excited or whatever. It's just all for the sake of clicks and views and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it did freak me out a little because of the automation of it, how fast it is, and like, it is ironic that it I read that it's like more of a threat to white collar jobs, and everybody thought, oh, that's going to be just the manual labor jobs that it's gonna.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, they also used to say, like, and they still say it, where it's like, oh, if you raise minimum wage, they'll just replace like McDonald's workers with robots and whatever. It's like, do you realize how expensive it is to put robots in a lot of these positions? It's like that.
Yeah.
It's wildly expensive to put a robot in there to make hamburgers and French fries and whatnot. It's literally cheaper to keep people in there. But yeah, what you're saying with like white collar work, part of the problem is people don't really know how to use the AI properly. Like ChatGPT, for instance, people are just asking it stupid questions.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it's like this can be utilized way more efficiently, but you have no clue how to use it. And then they get caught using it incorrectly, and it's very blatant at times. I saw like lawyers or people were trying, not lawyers, but people were trying to use it for like legal work, and it's like, this doesn't work like you think it does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same way, like I'm sure you've seen, like in universities or just schools in general, where it's like, oh, using ChatGPT to write my essay, and then they have like, oh, now the teacher is using like a AI detector, but it doesn't work. It literally doesn't work. Like the AI detector, if you put in like, the Constitution, it'll tell you it's created entirely from AI. It's like, well, obviously not. So like it's popular, but not necessarily fully functional. And people don't know how to, even if it was, most people don't know how to use it properly, myself included to an extent. It's complicated to the point of like, obviously it's pulling all the information from the internet everywhere and funneling it down to a response to the user to provide them with the most accurate information it can. So, I mean, obviously it's complicated in that extent, but people don't know how to interact with it properly to use it to its full extent. And then because they don't understand how it works properly, they assume that it's the most powerful tool in the world.
Yeah, just like, because it's like you just picture like a bunch of AI programs and then a bunch of AI detector programs.
Yeah, that's what's like
that's society.
Yeah, and it just, like I said, a lot of it just doesn't even work. It doesn't work properly because people hopping on the gravy train of AI subscriptions. Like, oh, give us however much money and we'll tell you if it's AI generated. And it always is, I promise. Yeah, the Declaration of Independence, AI. It was written by AI. They had it back then. Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of like with NFTs. It was a craze.
Oh yeah.
Very quickly died out because people didn't understand what it actually was and how it was just basically most of it was just a giant scam. It has used. I mean, NFTs do have like a practical usage to a certain extent, but the way people use it is just the way that most people use it is just a scam or money laundering because it has no tangible value. I mean, look what.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say this. We used like when Trump launched his NFTs, we saved all the images and relaunched them on other websites and resold them. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is how easy it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand unless it's like this most super lockdown thing. I don't know.
The idea like behind the technology is worthwhile for sure. But like the way it's utilized is the dumbest thing possible, where it's like, here's an image, give me $100 and I will give you a receipt saying you gave me $100. You don't own the image, but you did give me $100. So like there's nothing is happening there. It's just somebody uploading an image and then you paying them and they share you a link to the image. Essentially, you don't own the image. You don't own the rights to the image. You're just showing proof that you've paid someone money in order for them to send you the image that they also don't own most of it.
Yeah, and they were saying, "Oh, but this is this has the token in it or something."
It's valueless. That's the thing. It's it's tulips and Beanie Babies all over again. I mean, at least with Beanie Babies and tulips, you had something physical where it was an actual product. With NFTs, it's like I said, I can make an NFT of the Mona Lisa. I can make 100 of them and sell them. I don't own the Mona Lisa. I don't own the rights to the Mona Lisa or anything. It's like the people I sell to aren't going to. They would have just as much value going into Google Images, typing in Mona Lisa, right click, save as, and having that. It's the exact same value. You don't have to give me any money for it. It's like I said, we have all these interesting technologies like with blockchains and with like cryptocurrencies where the technology is valuable and it's useful, but the way it's being utilized is just to basically steal money from stupid people by people who have a tenuous grasp on how the technology works to begin with.
Yeah, I mean that at first reminded me of like those infomercials that would always say like, and when you buy this, you get the certificate of authenticity.
Yeah, well, it's like
it
with
says it's the thing, so
like the buy a plot of land and get like a lordship in Scotland and stuff like that. I'm sure you've seen ads for those, or like, I mean, that's nothing. That's just, I don't want to say it's a scam, but I guess it kind of is. It's like you're not actually getting land, you're not getting a lordship. Like it's not real.
Yeah, like when something like I thought people could buy, I don't know, something in space. I forget.
I vaguely remember that. I know what you're talking about to an extent. I can't remember exactly though.
Oh,
I know you can pay to have like stars named after you or something.
Oh yeah.
I think it's star or comets, something like that. You can pay. I'm like, oh, I just want to be named after the one that hits us. Not that, but I'm gonna call it the Jester Productions meteor. That way, the last thing people hear is my brand. They're gonna go look up the meteor, and it's just gonna link to the podcast, and people can buy the products from my sponsors.
And that will be the final descript, like the ending of the story with the Jesters.
It's true. That's gonna be the final episode of the podcast. I'm gonna do a live episode from where the meteor is gonna hit. It's gonna be the most streamed episode of our show. It's gonna be great. And then with my luck, the meteor will miss, and I'll be like, "Well, this is a waste." But
yeah,
awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're about an hour and a half in here. I don't know if you wanted to wrap up here. It's 20 to 10. Yeah. I should probably get dinner soon.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Had a fun time chatting again. Anytime you want to come
Yeah.
back on our show, let me know. Always happy.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. I'll look forward to that last episode.
Sounds good. Yeah. People can go check out deadjustproductions.live. It's linked to my website. It's going to be updated. I don't know when this episode is coming out, when you're posting this one, but hopefully
Wednesday, probably.
Wednesday. Okay. The website probably won't be up by then since it's only 2 days away, but we're close. We're very close to launching the new website. I'm excited. It's long overdue, and it's taken me way too long to get it done. So it's been like half a year, probably, if not longer. I'm rebuilding it from scratch, so it's been a real treat.
Oh wow! So, you had someone else do it. You didn't do all the coding and.
No, I did it all myself.
Oh,
all of it myself. That's why it's taken forever. Because I'm getting held up with everything else in between the rest of the brand stuff, and then personal life, having stuff going on there. So it's like, all right, I'll get home, I'll work on the website for like 20 minutes, and then 20 minutes is not long enough to do anything worthwhile for the most part. So, but we're very close to launching that. So hopefully within like a week or so, I'll be good to go on that. Get it up, get it going. Then, new episodes of our podcast every Wednesday. So if people want to check it out, they're more than welcome to.
Yeah, so the website, and you had a link tree and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I can send you the link tree.
Oh yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot again. And
yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on. Had a good time chatting.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, keep living that husky life.
Yeah, the 1 semester husky life.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Sounds good, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate everyone listening in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.